Today we're going to talk about addition for second grade. The strategies we're going to focus on today are going to be place value blocks, number lines, and part whole models. More so the number lines than anything else in this first part. When you're starting addition, two-digit addition for second grade, place value blocks with tens and ones, mats would be the best way to start, and then the students can see things being manipulated. I want to show part whole model here. That is the conventional part whole model that you would see. Having students have this model would be great. There's another model that uses the upside down V that we will get to later on. That is also a part whole model the students could use. But most of this today is going to be on the number line, and we'll link it a little bit to the part whole model. So if we had a problem like 34 plus 23, we're going to start off with a problem that doesn't have any regrouping with it to start off with. And students will typically start with this first number, 34, and they'll put their little dot on 34. They might put a little stem there where 34 is, and that's their beginning point. They're going to add 23 to it. Now a lot of students will count by ones each time until they get 23, and that's certainly a place to start for students. We don't want to discourage them, but we could want to see where they start on their own. But a thing we want to emphasize with students is landmark numbers, 30s, 40s, 50s, any multiple of 10 is something we want to emphasize with the students. Another little smaller landmark that students are familiar with, numbers that end in 5s. Okay, we want to emphasize those because they do practice counting by 10s and 5s in kindergarten and first grade, and so they should be familiar with counting by 10s and 1s or 10s and 5s with this strategy. And then they're going to get a link to previous knowledge, and that's going to help them do this. So one way you could start students on doing a problem like this is they could go from 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you want to have them put plus 6 on top. Okay, now you're at a landmark number, and we went by a landmark number. That's okay. We'll get to that in the next part here. So we're at 40. Now we would want them to take a jump to count by 10, and now they're at 16. Now there's a lot of ways you could do this. Again, it depends on where the kids are and what you want to emphasize, but I would try and emphasize to get the kids, can they take another jump? Well, they can't take another jump by 10 because that would get them 26. Okay, and we have 16 right now, so can they take a smaller jump? They can take a jump by 5, and that won't get them over the top of their number. So we jumped by 5, and students have to keep track of this, and that's okay. If they're not really good at keeping track of this right away, it's a skill they need to work on, and that's helping them get used to multi-step problems, all different things that this can help them with. And this is a starting point, and this is a very slow method, but it's a very important method. The number line links to so many things in math, decimals, fractions, just the visual, seeing this even spaces of the number line, breaking apart numbers in a way that makes sense, in a way that is useful to them on the number line, helps them with other strategies later on. And so right now we're at 21, and so you'd expect the student to say 22, 23. So now they've gone 23, where are they? They're at 57, and so their final answer, they would say, is 57 to this problem, 34 plus 23. So that is one way that you could emphasize. Another way, if you're starting at 34 again, is you could get to the nearest landmark. The nearest landmark, that's a smaller landmark, is 35, so I added only 1. Okay? And so now, can the students count by 10s from 35 all the way to 45? Some students can, some students cannot. And so you may need to take a smaller jump by 5, and then another jump of 10, very similar to the above, and then another 5, and then you go your 2 more. getting your 57. So very similar strategies, but the students have to keep track up here, keep track in their heads, and kind of go back and forth and make sure they're starting there. Now something to note, if students want to start with the second number, 23, or if this is flip-flop and 34 is bigger and they want to start with a bigger number, that's okay. It doesn't matter what number they start with. As long as you're encouraging them to use nice numbers, their landmark numbers, whatever you want to call them, so that they can more easily compute this double-digit addition. Something to link that to the part-part whole. When you link it to the part-part whole, it's not going to help them compute the answer, but I think it's important for the students to see that when you have two parts, you're either going to add or multiply to get your total, okay, your whole. If you have a part and a whole and you're missing one of the parts, you're either going to subtract or divide. It's an important thing for kids to see. It'll help them with word problems later on. It'll help them with algebra when you have missing add-ins or missing subtrahend type stuff, when you have adding, subtracting, missing numbers. It'll help them with that so much that you need to do some of the part-part whole model. So we'll put our 34 and 23, and you may need to just show them 34 could go here, 23 could go here, and then your question mark, what you're looking for, and it ends up being 57 because we figured it out, goes there. The way that the upside down V works, the whole always goes on top, and the two parts extend off the whole. This, if you do this strategy and you do this part and you link it together with what you're doing with the number line, it'll help you in the strategy later on that we will get to. So I would put my 34 here and my 23 here. Okay, and again, when they're multiplying or when you're adding more than two numbers, it could be part whole, and you could have another extension on your upside down V. It could be an upside down, more like an upside down W. So getting to the next problem, it doesn't matter if it's regrouping or not. You're really not worried about regrouping, you're worried about the number line. So again, it's 28 plus 67. Some teachers encourage them to start with 67 and do that. That is fine. You can certainly say which number is bigger, because that's a skill they need to have too, and then start with that because it's quicker. It's more efficient to start with a bigger number, but you certainly don't have to. Okay, so I'm going to start. I will start with 67. And it's something else you can link to. If they're plotting if they're putting a number on the number line, they're making that dot where it goes. That's something you can always link to for later on. But so we're at 67. If you wanted to put a little 67 down here, you could. And then you're going to make your jumps and your steps. We call them steps, or the steps by one. So getting to a close landmark number, 70 is our closest landmark number. We're going to go. Some students might just jump ahead and say, that's a 3. I know it's 3 away. They can do that. That's fine. Some students might need to just go 1, 2, 3, and that's okay too. All different kinds of ways. Encourage them to use different ways. Encourage them to share their different ways, and that'll make them better mathematicians. So I'm doing this one on the number line. So I'm looking for. I have plus 3. I'm at a landmark number. I can jump by 10. That's only 13. 10 more is 23. So I can do another 10. I'm at 23. How many more do I need to go? Kids would say, they might count it by ones. They might say, oh, it's only 5 more. So you encourage them to get this. Now I have 10, 25, 26, 27, 28. That's what I want. And so my final answer is 95. So again, being flexible with your numbers, being flexible with your ways to do it, keeping track above is essential for them, and talking a lot about landmark numbers. If you use the number line for this and you talk about landmark numbers and which one is it closest to, that will help them with rounding, that will help them with place value, and very important, huge skills for 2nd grade. Putting that on our part whole model, 28 and 67. Something you could ask the kids, if you switched it around and put 67 over here and 28 over there, would it matter? Hopefully they would say, no, it does not. question mark and question mark equals, and this is where the algebra, you could put some letters in here. And then down here on the other part whole model, 95 on top, 28, 67. So part whole models, number lines, you can use your place value blocks for a little while. They probably won't need place value blocks for a long time, but certainly those students that have more difficulty with some of these other things might need more place value block work. But that's kind of the number line in a nutshell, not too difficult. But if all the students had a number line on one piece of paper with just these landmark numbers on there, and they were practicing, it was laminated, it was maybe double-sided, maybe had 2 of them on there, and they showed 2 different ways how to do it. And they could work with a partner. These are all great ways for them to practice this as much as possible. When you break it up, I've seen some number lines where it's 0 to 50 and then 50 to 100. That'll work too. It's a little tougher for them to visualize that number line being a continuous model. You know, in theory, we really should have our lines extended with arrows on both sides, because the number line does go on forever, and eventually they're using negative numbers. They're using, you know, all kinds of different things where they have to use the number line for. When we add and subtract positive and negative numbers, we use number lines for that in 6th grade to help them focus and help them realize which way they're going when they're adding and subtracting negative numbers to positive numbers, or negative numbers to negative numbers. And so the coordinate plane also has number line going up and down, number line going across, has negative numbers. And so the more number line work you can get, the better it'll be for you for rounding, for you for place value, and for the upper grades for fractions, decimals, coordinate plane, things like that. And that's number line in a nutshell.